Hello everyone, this is Joseph J. McAllister, your host of The Thinning Veil. And tonight the power is out, and we've got quite a storm raging outside. So I thought I would take this opportunity to tell you another tale of the weird and unexplained. So tonight I thought I'd tell everyone about a little tale from my own past about a time that I saw an unidentified flying object. So, in a word, it's a UFO. Now, I'm not going to tell everyone they need to believe in UFOs. That's a lot to ask of anyone. But I'll just leave it up to you to decide. What did I see? Personally, I really don't know. So the first time that I saw it, because there were multiple times, was around the year 1987. And I would believe I was in my second year of junior high. So anyways, when I was a kid, I used to have really bad insomnia, and I would spend the entire night laying in bed. I couldn't sleep, and I would stare at the moon. And I would hope that I would see maybe some kind of, maybe like a UFO going around the moon, like some little dot of light that shouldn't be there. You know, just something interesting. And every few minutes I would pop up and I'd look out the window and look around and try to see if I saw anything, you know, anything interesting. Well, you know, on occasion I did, but that's a whole nother topic. But this night in particular, 1987, I saw a large comet flying vertically over the mountain, which was by Erie Peak, which is the mountain next to Ben Lomond, and also next to the North Ogden Pass. So anyways, the strange thing about it, you know, I looked at it for maybe about 10 seconds before it was gone, but the really weird thing about it was that it was flying horizontally because, you know, a meteorite's going to fly down and then burn up. Another thing is that if it was a comet, then it would be there for days on end, you know, months at a time before it goes back out into the universe. It's not just going to be there for a few minutes and then disappear. But you know, at the time I thought, well, maybe it was something way up, burning up in space. I didn't really know. So I didn't think much of it until years later when I saw it again. And that's when I kind of put the two together. Now I'm going to refer to my notes a bunch because honestly there's a lot of things to remember here. Times, dates, places, things like that. Let's see, so fast forwards, 1993, this was a couple years after I graduated. I graduated in 1991 from high school, of course. So, 1993, me and a couple friends, Robert and Corey, were hanging out, and it was late at night. It was about 10:30 at night. We decided to drive up North Ogden Canyon Road, halfway up the pass, which is at the Ben Lomond Trailhead. There's a parking lot there, and it was about 11 o'clock when we arrived. And time is kind of important in this situation, so kind of pay attention. Make a little mental note there. 11 o'clock, and we decided to hike up the Lewis Peak Trail, which is Ben Lomond off this way, Lewis Peak Trail the other direction. And so we started hiking up this steep descent. It was a good 20 minutes up the hill. And eventually we ended up at about 11:30. We stopped at this little spot It was about where the Ogden Valley Lookout is, which is on the trail, and some more abouts there. And I noticed, of course, this is at night, and all that we had was starlight. We didn't even bring flashlights back then. We just used the light from the city and the stars, and that's about all that we used to walk the trails. So anyways, we show up to this little spot, and the thing that's really interesting about it is that there is right on the trail there's a bunch of large boulders that form a campfire ring, and then there's some really large boulders for people to sit on, and then a clearing of trees, and it's kind of like cleared out of brush right there. And it seemed really, really strange to me. I was like, how did they get some kind of equipment clear up here on the mountain in order to take and move these large boulders into place? I just thought, this is pretty crazy, and it was really blowing my mind for some reason. I guess there's some way to do that, I don't know, but it really tripped me out at the time. So my friends Court and Robert, they found a little trail going off this way. They took off to the south, walking into the scrub oak, which was really thick scrub oak, but there was a trail, and they wanted to follow it and see where it went. And I didn't go with them. I just kind of stayed there, and I was just looking at the ground and tripping out on this. It only seemed like maybe 5 or 10 seconds, and I was staring at the ground. I didn't really have any idea that they were very far away. It hadn't been very long. All of a sudden the ground lights up, kind of like this lightning, like the same color, this kind of blue-white, that's like this perfect white, and it lit up really, really bright. It was just crazy bright. And so I turn my head and I look over, and I see flying parallel to the ground this massive comet with a tail that's like a mile long. And it seemed to me, I really couldn't tell how close or far away it was, but it seemed like a house length away from me or something. It was like really close, and it seemed like it was only like the main ball that was burning on fire or whatever it was, seemed like it was maybe the size of a Volkswagen bus. That's probably about the right size right there. The weird thing is, it didn't have like a natural light like these candles in front of me, like this tungsten kind of yellowish kind of color. It was like really bright like lightning, but it wasn't going away. For some reason, I think my mind went into this sort of crazy, like super adrenaline rush mode, where all of a sudden time slows down, and it's like the slow-mo, like 120 frames a second on this camera that I'm using, just everything suddenly in slow motion. And the weird thing about it is it seemed like this ball of fire and this long comet-like tail, but it wasn't up in the sky. It was horizontally between me and the next mountain, which is Ben Lomond. So it was flying through the pass between the two mountains, which was so weird. And I wasn't sure. For a minute I thought it was a comet or something. I thought maybe it could explode. I was kind of freaked out. I thought, is it going to hit something in the valley and like cause a fire? But like, I remember the little sparks were just trailing off in slow motion and kind of like zigzag, and it was like a giant sparkler in a way, and it was just craziest thing I ever saw. It was like this cascade of like sparks like going out from the front of the ball or whatever it was, maybe like a spherical shape that was on fire in some kind of weird way. And it made this weird hissing sound as it went by, which was also really strange. It was like, just like the air being let out of a balloon, or like an air compressor letting loose air. It's just this weird hissing sound, and it just slowly was going by, and I remember there was some trees sort of in the way for a minute, and then it kind of opened up, and I was just staring at it like intently, and I wanted my friends to turn around. I thought they were behind me, and I wanted them to turn around and just say, you know, look at this. I was afraid they were gonna miss it, right? So I yelled, "Holy f***ing at the top of my lungs as loud as I could, right? And I thought for sure that if they're around, they're looking. I'm not taking my eyes off of it, and there's nothing more I can do, right? So yeah, I swore. So anyways, I was staring at it for maybe like a good 30 seconds. It seemed like, I don't know in reality how long it was. And then all of a sudden, it just was gone. Just instantly gone. And there was no trace of it, or the tail, or anything. Now, I was pretty freaked out, you know. I didn't really feel like I was in danger. I just thought this was really weird. I didn't know what the heck I was looking at, you know. But yeah, and I thought my friends were behind me as well, so I wasn't that freaked out. And I couldn't see anything because I was blinded by this light. It was so bright. And remember, I said we didn't have a flashlight, so we were just going on starlight. All of a sudden, there's this brilliant, amazing light, like blinding me in the face, right? And so what I did is like I started like feeling around, and I started saying, you know. And also the other thing is that you know, in my vision, like I had this green kind of glow like burned into my vision, and that was also blocking everything. I couldn't see through that. And so I put my hands up, and I was walking around, and I was saying, "Robert, Corey," and I was looking for him. I couldn't see anything. I was totally blinded, and it wasn't going away for a while. It took a good like 2 or 3 minutes for it to go away. And I hear the crickets all of a sudden like chirping like crazy. And sometimes that happens, like if you shine a really bright light and then you turn it off, or you know, you just disturb them, and they're not sure whether it's day or night, and they're all freaked out, and they just start going cha 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 cha, you know, like doing their cricket thing. And so I kind of started, like, I was standing there for a few minutes because I couldn't see anything, and then I started like trying to go through this this sort of scrub oak. There was like a bunch of like dead trees, and it had like all these different pokey branches like going everywhere, and I was afraid it would like poke me in the eyes because I couldn't see anything. So I was like this, like walking and going like this, trying to get through these trees, and like trying to figure out, look down and see where the trail was, and trying to rub my eyes and stuff. And finally I got over to this cliff. Luckily I didn't just walk off the cliff, but I guess it was a rock, and then they were in the way of the cliff, and I was like, "Robert, Corey, what the heck, did you see that?" And they were like just completely ignoring me, and just talking and looking, staring off the side of the cliff off to the south, you know. And they were like kind of down a ways and behind all these trees, and probably just missed the whole thing. And I was telling them about, you know, there was this crazy thing, I don't know what it was. It was like a big fireball came out of the sky, and blah blah blah, and then it was gone, and I'm blinded, and blah blah blah. And so anyways, they completely did not believe me at all. They thought I was making up the dumbest story in the world, and they just wouldn't even pay attention to me. I started yelling at them because I was like, "What the hell? I'm trying to talk to you. You're busy yapping at each other. I just seen a freaking thing, you know, I'm trying to tell you about. It was really important to me, right?" And finally I got them to listen to me a little bit, and then they said that I was just making something up, and if that happened, they would have seen it or something. So, you know, so then I just got really mad about it and just said. So then we decided to go up the trail a little ways after a few minutes, and finish our hike, which our real destination was Erie Peak, which is kind of like, isn't that a weird name, Erie Peak? Kind of fitting. That place is a little eerie. So we reached that place about 12:20 a.m. and hung out for maybe like 20 minutes or so, maybe 20-30 minutes. And after a while, we decided to walk back down the mountain, and we were kind of done for the night. And we got maybe about halfway back to the car, which, you know, is just where it barely starts descending down towards the parking lot down there. And so, you know, because it's kind of flat for a long time and then it starts descending down. So we're still way up on the mountain. And I was in a bad mood because nobody was listening to me about this big ball of fire thing that I seen coming out of the sky and whatever, right? So anyways, Robert, he starts going, you know, that light up there, that star or whatever, it's like a planet or something, it shouldn't be there. And I just said, dude, like, you know, I seen this whole thing, man. Like, now you want me to look at a little speck? I was like, that's like nothing. You know, it had no interest for me whatsoever. I was like, you kept hounding us about, no, it shouldn't be there. I know it. And I said, dude, you don't know where all the stars and blah 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 is. Maybe it's the North Star. I don't know. You know, maybe it's Jupiter. And he said, no, you guys stop. Look at that thing. It shouldn't be there. It's not right. There's something that is not supposed to be there. I said, dude, I don't know. It's just like a planet or something. You don't know where the planets are. We're kind of arguing. You know, that was kind of our dynamic. We were teenagers. So anyways, he finally says, stop and look at this thing. Just stare at it for a minute. Just do me that one favor. So we sat there. Me, Cor, and Robert, we just sat there staring at this thing for maybe like 3 minutes. It looked about the size of like Jupiter and North Star. It was just a bright star, it looked like. All of a sudden, it just goes from 0 to going across the sky. And we were like, what the heck? That doesn't make any sense. And the speed it was traveling was about the speed of a satellite. You know, it's probably about that high, just barely out of the atmosphere, like near Earth orbit or something. So a satellite, generally, when you see it go across the sky, and I watch satellites all the time, so that's something I do like it. Around sunset, you can see them just after sunset, or early in the morning, you can see them. And you can't see them in the middle of the night because the sun is not shining on them. The earth is blocking them, so you can't see them. But around sunset or sunrise, you can see them. If you think about it, this thing went from 0 to whatever speed, and probably like the speed of your average satellite. So it's probably like around, from what I read on the internet, like 17,100 miles an hour. So 0 to 17,000 miles an hour, that's pretty fast change, like instantly, right? What can do that? So that's kind of weird, right? Now, so it travels and then it goes across the sky a little ways and then it stops again, and it's like pretty much directly over us, but you know, way up in space somewhere now. And you know, again, it's like a big ball of white light, you know, so seems related to me. I don't know, you know. Anyways, it stops again. It stops instantly. So again, that's weird. It didn't slow down. It just stopped instantly. And especially in space, that's got to be like really hard to do. It's sitting there, and now we're watching it for like really intently for about 5 minutes. And all of a sudden, there's some other dot come along, some little other speck that's about the same size. And it's going across the sky, and it goes to where, like, from our view, it almost seemed like it passed directly behind it. So it must have been pretty close. like super, super close. Like it seems like whatever it was repositioned itself so that it would be in the orbit of whatever was coming along the horizon so that it could get a good look at it. And probably, I don't know what it was, but if it had some kind of device or some kind of creatures, who knows, right? Then I guess it got a good look at it, right? And so this thing going across the sky that came in contact with this thing, I always thought that maybe it seemed awfully bright for a satellite, and I always thought that it was maybe the International Space Station or maybe the space shuttle, like the NASA space shuttle at the time. So anyways, we watched it for maybe about another 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden that little speck, the one that shouldn't be there, right? It all of a sudden started going again, and it took off, and it just kept going south, and we watched it and watched it and watched it until it disappeared. And that was pretty much it. And the strange thing too, to me, is that, I was trying to tell them, I was like, look, see, I said there was some flying big ball of white light that went through the canyon and that disappeared. And now we're seeing a big ball of white light way out in space that's doing weird stuff and that, isn't normal. And then I'm like, the two go together, right? That's, you should like believe what I'm saying, right? Because like I don't have a psychic power to like make up stories before, you know what I mean? Like before there's some kind of weird anomalous event. Like I'm like, oh, well, sensing something will happen, and then I'll just make up a lie right now, and then I'll relate it to that in the future. Like I don't have that power, you know what I mean? That's crazy, right? So obviously I didn't just make something up, but they're all concerned about a little speck that they saw. I saw the main event, and they won't even believe that it happened. But I don't know. I talked to him at one point, and they were saying that part of why they didn't want to believe what I was saying was because something like that would freak them out, and they don't want to think about something like that. I never considered that as an option, because I'm always the type that's like, oh man, there's like some kind of ghost in that house, let's go. I'm always like, I'm on it. Oh, there's a UFO up there, let's get our hiking gear and get up there. Shine a flashlight at it, try to like get the aliens to come out of the spaceship, I don't know. I'm just like, oh, there's a basement and an abandoned church in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night, I'm going in. I'm that guy. And other people get freaked out about things, and I understand that it's freaky, but I don't know, it's like I just have this weird sense of adventure and curiosity, and like kind of this morbid weird fascination where I go straight at things like that. I'm like, what is it? There's a demon here, let's see it, make it levitate something. I'm like maybe if we agitate it, it'll act up, I don't know. Let's get the Ouija board. I'm always that guy. So I guess most people like see something weird and they run for it. So I think that's part of why, at least that's what one of them said one time, is why they didn't want to talk to me about it. They didn't want to think about it. They didn't want to believe in it, because it was just too vivid. And also, they said that if something like that was that close to us, that they'd be worried that, there was some missing time and that something happened. So anyways, we got to the peak at like 12:20. About 1 in the morning is when we saw that light way up in the sky, and we were checking that out for like, maybe it was a good 15 minutes or something. And then the thing is, after that we just hiked down the trail, and we didn't talk much about it, and we hiked down the trail in the dark like always, and we just kept going, and it took about maybe just like 15-20 minutes to get down the hill. Now remember I said it's like 1 o'clock and we spent, maybe like 20 minutes hiking and like 10 minutes looking at this thing, and it should have been like 1:30. Well, when we got down out of the hills, right? Remember I told you to pay attention to time. The weird thing is, we didn't have cell phones back then, right? This was 1993. We had watches, right? So we got back to the car and we turned on the light in the car, like the dome light, and one of my friends, he looked at his watch. I think it was Robert, and it was like 3:45 in the morning. And we were like, oh crap, it's 3:45 in the morning, we gotta go. We didn't intend to be out that late, but how did it end up being 2 hours and 15 minutes of lost time? So there you go, right? Classic lost time. So the thing that's kind of weird to me, I guess it doesn't freak me out. I mean, I'm here, I'm not like dead or anything, so it's not like a big deal. But the thing that's weird is that this thing was coming along in my field of vision. I was staring at it. It was very close to me. It was so close that if it had a way to hear me yell, it would have heard me. So, and all of a sudden it disappeared. And all of a sudden my friends weren't behind me and just barely walking into the woods. They were like way out there on the face of a cliff, a good ways away from me, where we were way separated at that point. And so it seems like something happened right then. And I know that you can blank memories out of your head, and you can, I've done it before for like, a good 10 years. I didn't remember certain things that I just didn't want to remember. And so I know that can happen. But it kind of makes me think, what if we were all standing there and I yelled and they all saw this, like I thought was going on, right? That's what I thought, my perception of what was happening, is that we all saw this thing and that they're right behind me, so they must have seen it. I yelled at the top of my lungs, right? So how is it instantly this thing has disappeared and then they're way out there in the forest on the other side of the mountain? And I kind of think, that's when the lost time might have happened, right? Maybe a good 2 hours and 15 minutes of like, who knows what, right? Maybe it turned towards me and it went over the top of me or something and lit us up, and maybe I blanked all that out of my head because maybe I don't want to remember. Maybe it's too much for me to even remember. I'm the type that would like to remember. I'd be like, okay, let's go to a psychotherapist or a hypnotist or something, and one of those people for that, a regression therapist or something. I'd go and be like, let's pull this out. What happened, right? But I'm just not sure that there's anything there. I just don't know. How does something disappear, especially with a mile-long tail? How does it? The whole tail was gone. Shouldn't that like fade away over 30 seconds? Or I don't know. Things don't disappear, right? They can't just be right in front of you and then disappear. And another thing is that was really confirming to me is the fact that when this thing came by, it blinded me, and it created like when you look into a flashlight and you stare into it and then you look at the wall and you can't see anything for like 5 minutes because there's a big green glow in your eyes. Man, it literally blinded me. It had to be something physical. It wasn't in here like just I had some weird hallucination. It was something physical. And why did all the crickets start going crazy? All right, real quick for you camera techies out there, just out of curiosity, you might want to know, I'm using the Sony A7S II. The only lighting that I'm using aside from the lightning right there is I have 2 candles off on this side. I have 1 small candle here, and back there I have 3 candles. And so literally that's what you're looking at, and I'm at 1000 ISO and 24 frames a second, 150th shutter speed. I'll put the specs right there. But the interesting thing is, you know, and I'm also not using any digital noise reduction software. Anyway, so you can literally film with this camera in candlelight. So that's pretty amazing right there. So yeah, I was watching some ISO tests in the past, and I remember a couple of them, they just used a candle and they were trying to do their ISO exposures and see how far you could push the camera before you got noise, which, you know, at that point you've got garbage, right? Although you can use the noise reduction software and like really push that limit as well. I started thinking, well, could I film an entire episode in just candlelight? Well, I guess you can, right? I just did it. So the Sony A7S II, wow, that's impressive. Really. So it's a good camera.